What's up? We're in the prison experiment?
On day 1 of the prison experiment, I arrived at the prison later than the rest of the inmates. I had been busy, but I was still determined to make the most of the time left in this day. I donned my clothes and I headed up to the prison for the first time. At first I just explored. I found the locker rooms, shot a few hoops, admired some art in the yard, and made some tools. Later, in the cafeteria, I had a vision. I knew that I needed to start raising capital of some kind, but I didn't know what. I started selling whatever I had on me, though I may have embellished the truth a little regarding what it actually was, in exchange for whatever people would give me. I was still searching for whatever it was I needed when I met Rice. Together, we founded the Order of Hungry Prisoners. Over the next couple days, I continued recruiting until the order had 6 members. Me, Rice, Nero Zever, Boris Shoes, Parrot Quack, and Drawn OW. I wanted it to grow more, but things took a turn for the worst when Warden Jaw died. On day 3, Rice was killed. I had no idea what had happened, except for the fact that he had been murdered. It was now my only goal to find out who did it, and get revenge for my fallen comrade. My only lead was a prisoner I had seen him walking with the other day, named Hellman's Mustard. At least it was a start. I met with Hellman's in the yard. He didn't know much. In fact, he hadn't even heard that Rice had died. I thanked him for his time and headed to meet up with Boris Shoes, who had something to tell me. When I finally reached him, he confided in me that he was going to do something risky. He gave me the food that he had collected for the Order of the Hungry Prisoners so that he didn't lose it if he died. I was obviously concerned for his safety, but I respected his need for freedom. I would have tried to escape with him if I hadn't had unfinished business in the prison. I still needed to avenge Rice. I've overheard Boris being arrested, but Click MC is also in the area, someone I need to interrogate. For the case, I don't know what to do, and I'm going the wrong way. I had found a lead in my investigation. I had overheard a prisoner named Clickin' MC having a conversation with Chumimin TV. I don't know what it was, but I had a gut feeling that one of these individuals knew about the murder. Unfortunately, right at that very moment, I heard a guard taking Boris Shoes into custody. I needed to solve the case of an old teammate's murder, but what was more important now is preventing another teammate from meeting the same fate. I raced through the halls and through the yards trying to find Boris, but it was no use. Maybe, just maybe, he had gotten away on his own. I could only hope. Not too long after I gave up looking, a prison-wide lockdown was called. By some chance, I happened to stop in a cell right next to Chumin TV, the prisoner Click NMC had been talking to earlier. I asked him if he had any information, and when I found out he had none, I asked where I could find Click. He informed me that he was just down the hall. Once this lockdown was over, I could find him and ask him any questions I had about Rice. Boris Shoes is now kill on sight? While waiting for the lockdown to end, I overheard a guard state that Boris was kill on sight. This surely meant he had escaped captivity. However, now his safety was at an all-time low. I found him. The lockdown ended, and I had found Clickin' MC. We were all ordered to go to the courtyard, so I followed him there, intent on interviewing him. In the yard, we learned that there had been an escape attempt coordinated by a guard. Everyone involved had been captured, and I could only assume based on the timing that Boris was one of them. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do for him now, even if he was still alive. I decided to keep my focus on the investigation. In the halls, I confronted Click. Immediately, another prisoner warned me against talking to him. Interesting. I began questioning Click, but soon he was arguing with IG and Son about items he had allegedly stolen. I was worried it would turn violent, but IG and Son seemed almost scared of Click and soon left. Despite this, I pressed Click for information. He told me that Rice had been targeted by the Mafia, led by someone named Omega. The killer, according to Click, had been Tattered Melions, another prisoner. Unsatisfied by the way Click had acted so sketchily while talking to me, I set off to find Tattered and confront him. While asking around trying to find Tattered, I received a message from Ultimate Punkak informing me that Click and MC had lied. Omega's group was not the Mafia, and Tattered Melions had not killed Rice. I found out that Click and MC was an enemy of this group, but they too were scared of him. Keeping this in mind, I met up with Parrot Quack to ask for backup in dealing with Click. I told him that there's not much hope in this prison except for that given to you by friendship. Click and MC had to pay for taking that hope from us. Parrot refused, unwilling to risk his life for revenge. This was disappointing, yet understandable. Like Boris had to me, I gave Parrot my food in case I didn't come back. In return, he gave me a weapon and wished me luck. Right as I was leaving, I received a mysterious message from one Lostin Lawlin. It said that there was someone who could kill Click for me. My grievances were personal, however, hired help might guarantee that Click got whatever was coming to him. Besides, I wanted to make sure that Click really was the killer before ending his life, and having extra manpower would put me in a position to do that. Lostin gave me a name, Spring Seasons. I set off to go find him, only to learn he was being kept in solitary confinement. This prisoner, Kara's Cornflakes, made sure I wasn't one of Warden Solev's informants, and then told me she might be able to get Click handled like I wanted. She was in line at the infirmary, though, and while she was still waiting, Click and MC was killed by IGN's son, somewhere else in the prison. I've come to learn that Click and MC, who I suspected to be Rice's killer, was just killed by IGN's son. There it was. Click and MC was dead, not by my hand, nor by anyone associated with me. It would seem that whatever conflict he had created with IGN's son had been his end, and not his alleged killing of Rice. Disappointed with my lack of revenge, I decided to at least make sure that he really was the one who killed Rice. I had meant to interrogate him before his death and get him to confess to this crime. However, now that wasn't possible. I decided to try and find Tattered Melions. Since Click had given me his name as the killer, I assumed that he must at least know something about Rice's death. This is the clubhouse where I saw him earlier. It would appear he's no longer here. I went to his group's clubhouse, where I ran into Ultimate Punkak, the one who had told me about him earlier. Tattered wasn't there, but I was able to get in contact with him via messaging. I asked him if he knew anything at all about Rice or his death. Neither he nor any of his friends did. At this point, revenge no longer mattered to me. All I wanted was closure. Tattered told me that Click had multiple personalities, one of which was prone to going on murderous rampages. It was likely that in one of these he had killed Rice. However, Rice wasn't the only one. Click and MC had made enemies with me, this group, IGN's son, and probably countless others by slaughtering my and their friends. I hadn't been the one to put a stop to him, but that no longer mattered to me. What mattered was that he was finally gone, and he would never do this to anyone again. Knowing that, I could finally go on in peace. I met up with Kara's Cornflakes from earlier and told her about what I had been through on this day. Afterwards, I went to a cozy little pub in the yard and bought some bread. By pure luck, I had found a ton of stuff on the ground earlier, and I was all geared up and ready for whatever the next day would bring. I won't get too into it, but suffice to say, I got out of that prison alive. The same cannot be said for most other members of the Order. Rice, Nero Zever, Boris Shoes, dead. I believe Parrot Quack and John W. made it out. However, I never saw them again. I have a lot of regrets from my time in prison, but I'm ready to leave them behind me. It's time for me to live the rest of my life. That's not canon. Ignore that.